Welcome to Affliction by Addiction. My name is Justin Wood. I have experienced 23 years of drug addiction. That was my distraction in life that I chose. So basically, welcome to the page. I'm super happy to have you. If you're here, it's because you're trying to gain an understanding of an addict in your life, or maybe you're an addict and you're trying to gain perspective. It's a beautiful thing if you're here and you're trying to do that. I just give the information that I lived, that I went through. 23 years is a long time, so I certainly practiced quite a bit. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my story because I want to associate. I want people to have an association that I do have an understanding of what I'm talking about and what I've been through. I started using drugs when I was 14. Obviously, they were organics, just marijuana. And then I graduated to mushrooms. And from mushrooms, that just wasn't enough for me. There's nothing wrong with organics used in a correct manner. I believe that today. But at that time, I was too young and didn't understand. So then I progressed to acid. Acid expanded my mind considerably, but still wasn't enough. So it opened the door for me for cocaine. And then with coke, I convert. That wasn't enough to pack it in my nose. So I smoked it. So I started smoking crack for a lengthy amount of time. And I was doing coke for a lengthy amount of time as well. 18, I started doing heroin because I no longer could handle being awake all the time. And then heroin became my best friend. And it was a comfortable place for me to be because I was high functioning addict. I had jobs, I had girlfriends, I got married once, I had children. Difficult thing to say, but it's a reality. I'm not here to lie. You'll never find any dishonesty here. This is a place that we can be very real with each other. And I would encourage, if you have any questions like that, please. There's no judgment ever here. So that's why I tell you about my story, because my past doesn't define me. Who I am today is the person I am today. And I've learned from my past, so I apply that. So I have no remorse or any negative aspect about telling you my story and the things I went through, because our stories are just our journeys. And it's with our journeys that we learn things and what we do with it. So once I became friends with heroin, I put it into a needle at 20 years old. I had a lengthy time with all the prescription medications as well. I was a very good drug addict because I was trying to feel something. Because I didn't want to feel emotions. I wanted to just numb myself with another kind of feeling, because that's what human experience is about. It's a feeling. It's just whether you're willing to process a physical, emotional feeling, or you're willing to distract it and numb it with an outside source. And that's what I did. So, my heroin addiction had me be functioning for a period of time until I wasn't. And then I would resort back to putting everything inside of the needle, and I would carry on in that manner. I lost my first relationship when I believe I was 29. I lost those two children and that woman. The children was a very difficult thing to lose. I fought for them in court for 5 years, but if I'm being honest, I was not ready for them, and my journey wasn't allowing me to have them. It was difficult in that moment because I couldn't understand it, because I refused to appreciate and respect the fact that I wasn't ready to have them, but I very much wasn't. And then I half cleaned myself up to get them back. I'd actually let go of the heroin, got off of methadone. I was on methadone for 12 years. I had a period where I was off of it because I'd completely, I wanted my kids back. I was willing to do anything, except I couldn't let drugs go. I still was doing cocaine. I failed the the P test that was required by me by the court, and I forged the documents to say that I didn't fail the P test, and I got caught, which resulted in me not having my children. It was, my fault in my life. It's not an easy thing to say, but it's the truth. So, we're here for the truth. I'm not going to lie to you. Just things you do when you're an addict. You always think you can, figure it out. You get around whatever you're trying to go to, because that's what we do with addiction. Addiction just teaches us to go around things. We don't ever we're not willing to face anything, no matter what it is. That's why we use drugs, because we don't want to process things for what they are. So we teach our mind to distract ourselves and think up other ways to not deal with an issue. So I did that with my everyday life. I was very quick thinking. I was always very quick on my feet, because I had to be. Because if I didn't, selling drugs and doing drugs and being in that world wasn't always pretty. There is still love in those places. If anyone has a child that's facing drug addiction right now, they may be homeless. There's love in these places. I want you to know that. I want to give you a peace of mind on that for sure. But there's, like anything, there's also a dark side to it as well. And unfortunately, when we're dealing with mental health and addiction, things can get quite crazy quite quickly. And love is consumed by fear, and bad things happen. So that's an unfortunate reality. If you have someone you know in the world of addiction, or you're living in addiction, then you know that yourself. Once I lost my children again, I met another woman. Not unfortunately, but I was being selfish and I wasn't thinking, and I got her pregnant too. I should say that I was a very good father. Regardless of the drug use, I was a very good father. I loved my children very, very much. I worked hard for them. I made sure they had the things they need until I couldn't, until what goes up must come down. So my addiction always brought me down at some point, no matter the company. I had a couple companies. I was, working for a very good company. It didn't matter. At some point, the addiction took everything from me. Unfortunately, I lost another child after that, and then I was faced at 34, being alone again. Lost the house, lost everything, like everything. I had nothing, and I became homeless. And then when I was homeless, this was a whole new world for me, being on the street, and I had to learn and think very quickly. I was always pretty resourceful. I tried to be a drug dealer, drug addict with a heart. Like, I still had compassion and cared about people, because I still viewed the world in that manner. It was difficult. It was very difficult. Being homeless was very, very difficult. And I'll tell you, if you have someone that's homeless in your family, or someone that's homeless, the scariest part is not the addiction. The scariest part is the practice of being homeless and it becoming normal and comfortable. You become okay with it. That is the most scary thing about being homeless. Anything you practice, you get good at. That doesn't just mean like jobs and things like that. That's anything. That's absolutely anything in life. If you want to be negative and you practice that, you will remain negative, or you'll be very good at it. If you want to practice love, you can practice love, and it'll embody you, and you can become that. But if you can practice being homeless, you can practice being a drug addict, trust me, you get very good at it. It's just a reality. So if you know someone that's homeless, I know what that's like. I've been there. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult to come out of. So I spent 2 years doing that. I went to prison because I stole some things, and they weren't mine. I got caught for them, and I had to go to prison. That was a whole new world because they took the drugs away from me, and it was fentanyl. I was doing fentanyl for like 5 years at the end, and fentanyl was a very powerful drug because there's nothing organic about it. It's pure chemicals, and maybe you've taken some pharmaceuticals in your life and never became an addict, but you understood how powerful that drug was. Fentanyl is definitely one of those drugs. It's a concern in life. It's a big concern. So I understand and appreciate all of the drugs. I had a little bit of time with methamphetamines being put into heroin. That's how they were selling it. So I was living in this spun out world. I was doing it as well. It went in the needle when I didn't have anything and somebody had something. I just did it. That's just the way it went for my drug addiction, and that's the level I chose to go to, because at the end of the day, I didn't want to process what was really wrong with me. And if you want the truth today, it's because I didn't love myself. That's a fact. The end result was I didn't love myself. And I had to learn that in a prison cell, and around a bunch of guys that were missing the same thing. Prison isn't filled with animals. Some are, for sure. Mental health's a very real thing. Makes us do stupid things. Controls the human in a different way. But not everyone in there is an animal, a bad human, let's say. They're not all bad humans. They might have done bad things, but they're not bad humans. I was one of them. I did bad things, but I wasn't a bad human. But in there, I learned about something else, and it was a gift, and I was very, very grateful for it. And it was love, and it started by loving myself, and then it was a journey of understanding. By loving myself, I had to forgive myself for things that I did, and it was a process, and it was something that took practice. So it's a bit about my story. It's kind of where I have arrived today with Affliction by Addiction. Now, Affliction by Addiction simply means somebody who is affected by addiction. But I want anyone watching this to know that if you're an addict, we're going to get real here. You know, I'm a no bullshit kind of guy. I'm very real. I have another Facebook page called Real Talk for an Unreal World YouTube channel if you don't have Facebook, whatever it may be. But we're going to get real. I want to help people. People say to me, 23 years of shit you went through in your life, man, that's a long time. Like, to waste that time, I didn't waste nothing. Some people go to institutions to learn things. I went to the street. You know, I'm a very logical, practical man, and I learn through anything I do, even if it's crazy psychology classes, let's call them. But Earth School, as someone has mentioned to me, it was very difficult for me, but it didn't mean I didn't pass. Because I learned a lesson. And when you learn a lesson in life, new ones begin. And that certainly has happened for me. But when we learn something, we're here to share the experiences we went through to hopefully help somebody else on their journey. So Affliction by Addiction is just that. I'm here to help. I know about addiction counseling, and I know all about rehabs. I've been to many of them, and quite honestly, they lack love and education, unless you got the money. You know, $100,000 a year for a drug addiction facility. Well, sure, you're going to get the best attention you can get, absolutely, but let's be real, most of us don't have that. So I'm going to offer this to you, and I'm going to give it to you for free. Everything is free from me. I want to help. I know, I should say I come from a very beautiful family. Suburb kid, you know, first world country. I'm privileged. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, but I was raised in by Toronto, Ontario, to two individuals that were unbelievable parents. They gave me everything that they didn't have in their life, which was everything. So I had a very fortunate childhood, except that they couldn't teach me what I was trying to learn. And they beat themselves up for that for a long, long time. And this is to... They support me 100%. Today they're my best friends. We are in a place of love because we've forgiven each other, and I have explained to them that I apologized for the difficult journey that they had as well. My difficult journey impacted their life, and it's very difficult as a parent to not understand why your child is going through these things when you've given them everything, or you've tried to give them everything. Like, it's taboo to talk about. I watched my mother and father struggle with this for years and years and years, and not have anyone to talk to about it. They always had to try and, you know, put on this face for society that everything was okay, when everyone knew not everything wasn't okay. But, you know, even their best friends didn't talk to them about it, and it's because the subject is taboo. But what is not taboo is the fact that 70% of homes are dealing with some sort of mental health issue, addiction, or depression. Depression under mental health, but, you know, well, let's label it as such because it's a very real aspect. Now, those three things are all lacking understanding, awareness, and love in the application of life. Mental health can very much be dealt with without medication. I truly believe that, but it takes a very large portion of time and dedication to the individual. Now, I'm not saying by any means don't take medication if you have mental health, because certainly for schizophrenia and things like this, there's chemical imbalance in the brain, which is something very different from what I'm talking to. But I am talking about emotional mental health, emotional traumas that have held back the individual from growing. So they look for a distraction on the outside to fix on the inside. And like I said before, anything we practice, we get good at. So these things we practice in our life, and we almost become the distraction. I would also like to talk about what addiction is. Addiction is simply a label. It's just a way for us to communicate something. But if we talk about what is underneath an addiction is a distraction. That's exactly what it is. Now, an addiction doesn't have to just be drugs. It can be television. It can be food. It can be porn. It can be many. Working out can sometimes be a distraction from, because we're looking for something on the outside to distract us from what's really going on the inside. Now, for drug addicts, and alcoholics and this kind of thing, it's a visual display of emotional trauma or emotional pain, right? That's what we see. You see it on the east side streets. Most cities have it. You know what I'm talking about. It's 2021. We can understand people that have allowed the addiction to consume this process of emotions. It won't allow it. So they can't really function in life anymore because they need that distraction constantly. The distraction being addiction or alcohol. So rather than judge another individual, sympathize and empathize for that individual's journey, because we have no idea what it took for that individual to arrive to that place. I remember somebody saying one time that, can you believe this Native American, he's laying in his jeans, or he pissed himself. Yeah, I can believe that. I understand and I sympathize and empathize that I have no idea what it took for that man, what he went through in his life to bring him to this place on the street, outside, in this emotional trauma, emotional pain. Society judges based on that notion, this idea that he doesn't conform to some sort of idea of perfection. Because let's be real, society as we know it today is built on depression. It's built on sadness. It's built on loneliness, and it's built on lack of community. So we have no idea what's going on in anyone's life because we don't communicate anymore. We just judge each other based on what we see on the outside. No one cares about the inside. And I can appreciate that because we're not taught that in schools, and we're surely not taught that by our parents because they weren't taught that. Because kids back then were to be seen and not heard. So let alone, talk about feelings and things like that. You didn't even hear it from them. So it's a learned behavior over time. And now we are seeing the effects of that from modern day time. So I just really want to appreciate that. And I want people to understand that that's really what's going on here. That's how we've arrived at this place. So throughout this, throughout what you see here on Affliction on Addiction, I am going to cover the drugs. I'm going to cover each individual drug. I will do a video on it, and I will teach you about what that drug is, the side effects, some of the effects to see in your children, because a lot of people are seeing things in their children and they have no idea what it is. And I know from my mother and father, they had no one to talk to about it. They had to find baggies and find things and try and piece things together until they found needles, And I certainly would like you to be able to have difficult conversations with your children, and grow from that, because let's be real, your mental health, if you're trying to help an addict, is imperative to be at its peak. Because if you're going to try and help another broken individual, I don't want to say broken, but not damaged, just, I don't want to use these words because they're heavy, but they're real, they're, I'm speaking from experience here, so it's a very real thing that when you're damaged, fuck yeah, man. Oh, sorry, that's trying not to swear and keep this kosher, so I apologize and forgive me if it slips, but it's a very real thing. Yeah, there's some damage on the inside of the human that's going on, but I want to help you understand that your mental health needs to be at its peak of performance, because you're about to teach and guide this individual, or you're going to appreciate that individual is on their journey. And as long as you do everything honestly, authentically, and with love, you have nothing to feel bad about. There's things I learned over the course of the 23 years that my parents would have liked to have done differently. So with them, I'm really grateful that they're here and they have embraced this journey as well, and they're going to share things that we went through as well. Like I said, I come from a suburb in Ontario, in Canada. I had a lot. So if you have a child that's you've given the world to and you don't understand what's going on, then they can relate. If you're a child that was dealt a difficult journey right from the beginning, then I'm here for you as well, because I can hold space for you. I understand you and me, regardless of how we arrived at addiction, we both were there. So we have something in common. So I'm speaking to the addict right now, and I can help. I can listen. I'm always willing to put time in for an addict if they take steps in the right direction. And I do work with addicts right now quite a bit. And something I've found is that when offered and they know that I'm real and they know the time and they know the process that goes into this and somebody gives a shit, they actually do take steps in the right direction. And when they fall, I just don't hear from them until they're ready for me again. And that's wonderful. That's a beautiful thing, because I'm always there for that. When you're ready, I want to be the guy that you call, because I'm going to be there to help you and guide you. And when your brain's trying to trick you, to go back out or do something, I can help you with that too. Because every time you think about going back into addiction, just remember, you want to have one foot back in that shit. You're going to ride that addiction out until the next time you come back around to clarity. So remember how long that journey can be. I remember one time I was clean for, 6 months. I just tried. I put one foot back in addiction for a couple times. It took 3 years for me to come out of it. That relapse was 3 years, man. So 1 foot in addiction, if you're on a road to recovery, value that time, man. Put positivity and negativity in between you, or positivity in between negativity, because anything that's trying to hold you back, man, time's a bitch. You don't know how long it's going to be. Right? And I'm sure parents can appreciate that as well, because a 3-year journey with an addict is a long time, never mind 23 years. Yes, I was born to angels. And I know that, and I appreciate them, and I'm very grateful for them. Something I want to just throw out in this opening video is, if you're giving your child money, you are enabling them. And all you addicts that be listening to me say that, just breathe for a second. If mom and dad are working for you, and you're calling them and you're begging for cash. I did this for 23 years. And I've earned a lot of my parents' money. A lot. And it's something that I carry with me. I don't live with regrets, because simply you can't. But I certainly learned from the experience. And they are, as difficult that is for my dad to hear, because he worked his ass off for us. He is also grateful for the journey and the experience that we are able to share. This experience with you as well. It took my dad some time, because he worked hard. My mother is still working, right? Because she should be retired, but mama's got a gift here, so I'm going to get her out. But moving forward, I also want to say, please don't give the children money. It just enables them, and sometimes struggling helps us see how much more we need to get out of what we're doing. So I would really encourage that. I realize that it's difficult. My mom is still, whatever. Yeah, I get it. It's difficult when they're your children. I have children myself, so I can appreciate that when they call. But just remember, if you continue to do it, you're just enabling them, and they'll never get out of it. Actually, my mom and dad did cut me off, and cut me off. I mean, I could call for $40 every now and then, right? But I stole something and went to jail, and that saved my life. Jail is not a place to save anyone's life. Jail's shit. It's not a good place at all. Like, it's very difficult. But it saved my life in the fact that it gave me. I had nothing. Okay, like that's how it saved my life. I had to lose everything in order to know what something was. So I know that's difficult as a mother and father to try and appreciate, but you have to accept that, because your child's journey is their journey. And if you're not allowing them to grow in the manner they need to grow in, well then, they're never going to learn the lesson. I have family members that do this for other members now, and they sacrifice their whole life to this day for that individual to stay addicted. And it breaks my heart, because I love them very much. I love them both very much, but you have to appreciate their choice to do as they please, and for them to do as what they deem fit as a parent. But as a parent and as a son, I would encourage you that is, it's just detrimental to the processing of emotions that the individual needs to go through. So, be careful with the money thing. It doesn't help them. It hurts them. I know, and I've been sick. I was a heroin addict, man. With heroin, it's a physical addiction. Fentanyl is way worse. Methadone is even crazy, is ridiculous. But so I know sometimes I'll beg my mother for that money. I begged her for it because I was so sick, and I didn't want to deal with the sickness and deal with my choices. I didn't want to deal with my choices. Let's be real, you know. Um, yeah, so I got mom to deal for that for me, and she did it. My dad reluctantly didn't know about it half the time, but he certainly felt it later, which I did too. So I want to say though today I'm very close with my mother and father. Like, very grateful for that. It was a long road, but I got them back. I'm so grateful for that. I had to make the changes in my life in order to arrive at a place where we could all be in a place of love. It took me to do that. But when I got out of jail and I was different, and I knew I was different because I had made a choice, I had accepted love in my life, and I was no longer in recovery for nothing. I was recovered because I made a choice. My mother was there for me. My mother and father, I'm sorry. I called my mom. I got out of jail and I had to go back and live in the drug house that I was living in. It was bad. It was one of the biggest drug houses, worst drug houses in the city I was living in. I had to go back there out of jail. And I knew I was different because I was thrown a bag of drugs and said, "Here, we got to get back in. You're okay." And I threw it back, and I was like, "I just need some clothes and a place to stay." I didn't have clothes when I got out of jail. The prison gave me some clothes, but I gave the drugs back, and I just said I need a place to stay, a couple days. The guy couldn't believe it. He was a friend of mine. I never forget him to this day. His name's David. He gave me a place to stay, and he didn't push anything on me, and he made sure I had a space to be safe because he couldn't believe it. He could not believe the kid that was in here was this man. I owe a great gratitude to David for that, and I'll never forget him. He gave me some clothes, and it was really sweet of him. It was cool. It was very cool. So, that being said, this is a man, like a drug dealer, drug prostitute, like everything going on, craziness. He had a heart for me. He had a heart, and not just me. I've seen him do it with many other people. I just want you to understand that there's love in places that seem completely dark. You know why? Because they're human beings. They're not addicts. They're human beings with emotional trauma or some sort of unprocessed emotional pain. That's addiction. Addict's just a label, just a way to communicate about it. But it's not what it is. People are people, right? Don't matter. So I want to just share that. There's hope. There's hope if you believe. Hope is a good thing, I guess. But believing in something is so much more. And that was the other thing I did in prison when I changed. I believed in myself. I made a choice that I had a new moral code inside of me, and that was going to remain, and that was it. I had accepted love. A spirit came inside of me, and it took hold, man. I was really grateful for it. I asked for it, but I was really grateful that it came because it was looking for me. So that's what we're going to do here on Affliction by Addiction. We're going to have conversations about this. I am going to open up a phone line. I have a Google Workspace that allows me to set up a phone number list for actually anywhere in the world. You can call in locally from wherever you are, and you can ask me questions. Back to the subject of things being taboo. It's not going to be here. Here we're going to be real. Here I'm going to answer questions that you have because I understand the perspective of my mother and father. I know everything they went through because I was very conscious of all the shit that I put them through. And I also understand what it means to be on the addict side. So I'm going to give you both perspectives to the best of my ability. You have to understand, I understand psychology very well. Yes, I was doing drugs and doing some bad things and teaching myself some bad things, but that doesn't mean I wasn't learning the entire time. It's a gift. I was really given a gift, and I'm here to heal. and I know my purpose in the world. That's the other thing I was given in jail. I love myself. I forgave myself, and I decided I was gonna, or I was given purpose to heal the world in my way, and I'm going to do it, and that's what I'm here to do. So if you have come to Affliction by Addiction, welcome, and thank you. Thank you for whoever got you here. I'm very grateful for that, because we're going to do some things here. This is a very real place, very real place. When you call in, you can be anonymous. I don't care. I will set up the dates on my computer, on the Affliction by Addiction page. We'll do it 3 nights a week. This is my first video, so we're going to start this thing next week. Tomorrow's my birthday, so it's a beautiful time. 38. It's crazy. I got clean at 36. 2 years, man. It's unheard of for me in my journey. You know, it's an incredible thing, and I have never stopped learning since that day. But I am so grateful for every single day. It is really great. Yeah, it's amazing. I have a lot in my life, but I don't really want to talk about all the things I have, because I'm not materialistic at all. But I certainly, the wonderful things that I have in my life are friends. I have friends and family and love. I understand energy and vibrations. I have a beautiful woman who's I get to share my time with. She's just like me, and she is a guide for me, a real angel. So I was able to understand what love really is. And because I love myself, I was able to share love with someone else. So, you know, addiction is just one term, but if you've got a lack of love in your life, you know, this is for you. Because addicts are just lacking love in their life. And you don't have to be an addict to be lacking love in your life. Matter of fact, many homes that I see in the world were pushed into doing a job they didn't want to do. And then they got a car that was overpriced that they didn't really need, but they got. They fell in love with somebody they didn't really know, because they didn't know who they were, so they thought that individual would teach them about themselves. And then when that didn't work, they got married and had kids because they thought the kids would teach them who they are. And in fact, that didn't work either. So the home is completely deprived of love in every aspect, from the job to the debt to the relationship to the family. So I can help with that. We can have conversations about that. Education is something I know very well. And it doesn't have to come through an institution. It actually is far more beneficial when it comes through the actual experience of another individual. And if you can kind of call in and teach me something, shit, I'm never tired of learning. I learn every day. So that's a very real aspect. So I'm really excited for this. It took me some time to get this started because I wanted to have emotion and be in a real place that I was ready for this. I was working on my other Facebook page, which is growing into a podcast right now. The eventuality of this as well will go into a podcast. But right now I want to have an open line so that people can call in anonymously, whatever it may be. You don't have to. You just tell me what's going on. You know, we'll work it out. You know, a lot of people say, "You're just like my son. You're just like my son." Probably. You know why? Because it takes many hands to raise a village. That's a native proverb. And if I can help in any aspect of your life or your child's life, I think that's a wonderful thing, because it's perspective and experience that gives us lessons, and experience gives way to perspective. So, you know, I just plant seeds, and it's up for you to water them. But if you need a place to gain some awareness and education about addiction or a lack of love, I know all about that. I know all about that. And I'm always sympathetic and empathetic. There's never any judgment. Any question you have, it don't matter. Like, I've been through shit, man. I walked the line, like, done some crazy things in my life. So I get it, you know, like, we all have a story. That's the other thing. I want to finish on this. We all have a story. We're so quick to judge other people, you know, but when we lack love, we're all on the same path, man. You know, we're all on the same path. There's those that are seeking love, and there's those that have embodied love and practice it. That's what's going on in life, but the destination is the same. So it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter what your journey looks like, because it's your journey. It's your story. And I realize sometimes they're heavy, and sometimes we don't understand why these things happen to us in our life. But if we learn the lesson that we're trying to see inside of it, the awareness comes, and then love is embodied. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm going to help you get there. I'd love to. So if you have friends that are struggling with this as well, please navigate them to the page. It'll be, I'll post it Monday, Wednesday. I'm not sure on the dates yet. I have a pretty good idea, but I'll put it up. It'll be the second thing on my page. So welcome to Affliction by Addiction. I'm so grateful for this and for you to be here. I'm a very real individual, and I'm very empathetic and compassionate, and I'm a human being. So I feel. And if you're a human being, then you're family to me, because I see everyone as one. I don't know race. I don't know. We're all red. We all have blood inside of us, which is source of life. So as well as water. So drink water. But I don't care what you look like on the outside. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care. Funny thing about that association is addiction doesn't care either. You know why? Because we're all human beings, and all of us can have damage or unprocessed feelings and emotions, and that's a beautiful thing, because that's human connection, and that's an awareness that we are all one, and we're going to bring this thing around. We're going to turn this world around for sure, because we're going to raise some vibrations, and we're going to love each other through understanding. So much love to you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate just you taking this time to learn some things.